Shalom Israel. It's your brother Marcus G back with yet another truth for thought. First and foremost, I must give all praises, honor, and glory to the Most High. I must give all praises, honor, and glory to the Most High. Second off, royal family, are you ready? Israel, are you ready? The Royal Gathering Part 2. ATL, are you ready? As my beloved brother, King Mike Maliss, announced just yesterday, heading into the Sabbath, the Royal Gathering Part 2, it looks like it will be landing or happening in the ATL. So, to all of Israel, to all of the royal family, especially those of Israel and the royal family in the ATL, here we come. Now, with that said, I also want to remind everyone, I know my Truth for Thought last week, YouTube was real special with, they put a restriction on it where you had to have an account with YouTube and you had to be at least 18 years or older to watch it. So not as many people got to view it. Not everyone has a YouTube account. And not all of Israel is at least 18 years old who does have a YouTube account. So preferably, that doesn't happen again this week. But I mentioned last week about our beloved sister, Queen Raya. And in the description of this Truth for Thought, you'll find the GoFundMe. If you would, please, Israel, if you are at a point where you can donate and be charitable towards our beloved sister, it is in regards to her living situation, I do implore you, please do so. Again, the link will be in the description. Also, I want you to keep Queen Raya, if you can. Donate, that's fine. I want you to keep Queen Raya wrapped in prayer. And not only Queen Raya, also Queen Shay, one of my spiritual aunties. Keep her as well wrapped in prayer. They are in some extenuating, for lack of better terms, situations right now. Although Queen Raya's is in regards to her living situation, I will say that Queen Shay's is in regard to litigation in the system, pretty much against the system here in godforsaken Babylon. Now, not only that, the upright and righteous people of Israel in prayer. Keep the whole nation in prayer. All right. Now, I want to revert back to my beloved brother, Mike Maliss's lesson. Who are the poor and needy, right? And when I'm asking who are the poor and needy, and I want you to keep that in mind, keep that question in mind. Who are the poor and needy? I'm asking, who are the poor and needy? Well, that question, who are the poor and needy, as far as in the Bible. I mean, everywhere you read the poor and needy in the Bible, it's about the same people. Okay. We're going to look at both things from the world and things from the Bible to pinpoint who are the poor and needy. So write that question down, keep it written down, keep it in your mind, and we're going to find out. So first of all, I want to get the definition of both those words, poor and needy. So we are going to, like I said, we're going to look at some stuff from the world, and then we're going to get into the Bible, okay? So I'm going to share my screen. And I'm going to share my screen to this. Now, here you see the definition of poor. And we're going to read all of these. Yeah, we're going to read all of them. So the definition of poor, lacking material possessions of, relating to, or characterized by poverty. All these definitions of poor, I want you to keep them in mind. They're going to help answer this question, who are the poor and needy? Definition number 2A, less than adequate. Definition number 2B, small in worth. Definition number 3, exciting or pity. Definition number 4, inferior in quality or value. Definition number 4B, humble, unpretentious. Definition number 4C, mean and petty. Number 5, lean, emaciated. Number 6, barren, unproductive, as far as the use of land. Number 7, indifferent, unfavorable. And number 8, lacking a normal or adequate supply of something specified, often used in combination. So that's the definition of poor. Definitely want to keep in mind definitions 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B, and 4A. Definitely. So now let's get to the definition of needy. Not as many definitions for sure for needy, but it's 2 of them. The first one, being in want, poverty stricken. And number 2, marked by want of affection, attention, or emotional support. So those are the definitions of the poor and needy. So now I'm going to look at, and I promise you, I tried to get this for 2022 and 2023. They're both like needles in a haystack, and I sifted through that haystack and sifted through that haystack, and I could not find 2022 and 2023. Now, I can't say for sure that there's been a drastic change because I don't have the proof, but I'm pretty sure that there's not been a drastic change to these things within the last 2 years. Well, basically a year, as 2023, per the man's calendar, has just began not too long ago. So let's look at this. Let's look at this. We're going to look at the poverty rate by race or ethnicity, okay? We're not going to take that much time looking at this because it's pretty much, you're going to know right offhand. For the whole, and we're just looking at the place known as Babylon, the United States, okay? In the United States, as of 2021, as you see right here, for the whole year, from the Rudy to the Tootie, 9.5% were of Edom or Esau, or Edomites. Now, again, this is the poverty rate by race or ethnicity, right? 9.5%, you see right there, Esau. 21.7%, the so-called, or the people referred to as quote unquote black. 17.6%, the people who are referred to as quote unquote Hispanic. And 10.2%, the people described as Asian, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander. All right, those are heathens. With 25.9%, the natives. In all of America, that is who makes up, for 2021, like I said, granted it is for 2021, the poverty in United States, in Babylon. So let's look at something else just to make sure, just to see. And the links to everything used will be in the description. So this is a totally different place. Went to a totally different place. And it's about the same percentages as what you saw. All right. The poverty rate in 2021 by ethnic group. Now, this time we have a visible chart, very visible chart. 24.3%. I think that it said 25% in the last where we last looked at, for natives. 19.5% so-called blacks. 17.1% so-called Hispanics. They didn't even do it like, they didn't even group it like the other ones that had the Pacific Islanders and all. They just said all races, all the other races outside of America, outside of the natives, the so-called blacks and the so-called Hispanics. 11.6%, 8.2%, 8.2%, the so-called red man or Caucasian, Esau, Edomite, the people of Idumea, however you want to say it. And then you got Moabites and Ammonites with 8.1%. So far, the world is saying that the poor and needy are the people that make up the 12 tribes of Israel. So far. So now I want to look at some of the living conditions for the three with the highest number in the poverty rate. You all should have saw pictures of them for the thumbnail. But let's look at it. We're going to start off with the ghetto. Used to be a song. The ghetto, talking about the ghetto. In the second half of the 20th century, the word ghetto in American culture was used to describe overpopulation and poverty in urban settings. Sections of the city, usually housing recent immigrants of African American or so-called Black or Latino origin, came to be referred to by this term. It communicated a kind of substandard living that could usually be ascribed to persistent discrimination against such communities, but also towards immigrants in general. In some instances, a sense of belonging and self-identification emerged from these negative connotations. Now, I would tell you, it is not a negative connotation, it's just the truth. The truth is that most, and when I say most, I mean the greater majority, most of the tribes of Judah and Issachar and Ephraim, most of those tribes, most of those people that make up those tribes stayed in the ghetto. Now, there are some other places, though, that we're going to look at. So let's look at a barrio. A barrio, okay? Let's look at this. Barrios are urban neighborhoods within the United States, in God-forsaken Babylon, that have a high concentration of Hispanics, variably identified as Latinos, Hispanos, and Mexicans, Chicanos, Puerto Ricans, and other nationalities from Central and Latin America. These neighborhoods often have deep emotional and cultural meaning for those who live there, for they are places where families and friends share both the positive and negative experiences of growing up Latino in the United States. Individuals often have a strong identification with their barrio, a pride in being from this place and of knowing other people from the barrio. It is a place where the inhabitants can be themselves, speak Spanish, conduct business, and generally feel accepted by others. It also serves at times as a refuge for poor and marginalized people who have been affected by the consequences of poverty, segregation, and discrimination. That sounds like the same thing for those people in the ghettos. Let's just keep reading. The barrio then is both a place of familial and cultural identification, and a place where there is often an experience of crime, poverty, and racism. Many barrios are characterized as having poor housing, bad schools, gangs, police harassment, and illicit drugs. Nevertheless, the Latinos who live there often feel a pride in being from the barrio. So we looked at the ghetto and we looked at the barrio. Now let's look at the reservation. Early in the colonial period, Europeans, pay very close attention to this, Israel. Europeans conceived the idea of taking most of the land in a particular area for their own use and setting aside undesirable lands for use by native peoples. In New England, a combination of military defeats and diseases weakened native peoples' will to resist. In November 1638, the Puritan leaders of the colony of New Haven forced the surviving members of the Quinnipiac tribe, who numbered fewer than 60 at the time, to surrender land around the mouth of the Quinnipiac River and its harbors. The Indians were allowed to keep about 1,200 acres east of the river's mouth. The Quinnipiacs agreed to have little or no contact with the English and were required to obtain the consent of the Puritan colonists before admitting any outside Indians to their reservation. The English had the right to appoint a superintendent to oversee the Quinnipiac's affairs. While the Native Americans could hunt outside the reservation so long as they caused no inconvenience, the English retained the rights to the timber on their land. The Quinnipiacs were responsible for any English livestock they killed, but they were not compensated for any damage that free-ranging cattle might do to native crops. In addition to the requirements that they accepted Christianity and renounced their own religion, the Indians could not purchase alcohol or firearms. Sound like the same thing that happened with these people in the ghetto and the barrio as far as their everyday living once these housing establishments or reservations were set up. They were often victims of racism, brutalities, all the same things. So, as you can see, per the world, it is holding true who the poor and needy are. So what I'm going to do now is stop sharing my screen. We're going to go to the Bible. We're going to go to the Bible. And we're going to see just how true this is. So let me go ahead and share my screen to the Bible. If you would, please turn with me in your 1611 King James Version of the Bible with the Apocrypha. You got a lot of scripture to go through. I got it kind of it's certain things. We're going to look at pretty much every verse that has poor and needy in it. Almost. I think all but like 2 or 3 verses. Even then, it's talking about the same people. But we're going to look at who are the poor and needy. We're going to look at how the wicked treated the poor and needy. We're going to look at how the Most High is in regards to the wicked treatment of the poor and needy. We're going to look at things that the poor and needy have asked of the Most High. We're going to look at how we, Israel, and in parentheses, the poor and needy, should treat the poor and needy, and in parentheses, Israel. And then we're going to look at how the Most High is in regards to the poor and needy. So we got a couple of things we're going to look at. And scripture for all of it. Scripture for all of it. So if you would just share my screen here. go ahead and, as I said, turn in your 1611 King James Version of the Bible with the Apocrypha. And we're going to start with Deuteronomy chapter 15 and verse 11. Deuteronomy chapter 15 and verse 11. And it reads, let me go there first. Deuteronomy 15 and 11. And it reads, for the poor shall never cease out of the land. Therefore I command thee, saying, thou shalt open thine hand wide unto thy brother, to thy poor, and to thy needy in the land. This was said from the Most High to Israel. Again, keep in mind, the question is, who are the poor and needy? Okay. Now I want to go to Psalms. We're going to get a lot of stuff out of Psalms. We're going to go to Psalms chapter 9, verse 18. Psalms chapter 9 and verse 18. For the needy shall not always be forgotten. The expectations of the poor shall not perish forever. So the poor and needy, it looks like they're not going to be forgotten. And they're not going to be poor forever or for always. Now, there are a lot of scripture there's one in Revelations I can get that corroborates this as soon as we find out who the poor and needy are. Let's go to Psalms chapter 12 and verse 5. Psalms chapter 12 and verse 5. We're going right back to Psalms, going over 3 to verse 5. For the oppression of the poor, for the sighing of the needy, now will I arise, saith the Lord. I will set him in safety from him that puffeth at him. The poor and needy, the Most High is going to save the poor and needy. Who are the poor and needy? Let's just keep going. Let's go look at what King David, this is a king. Because I know a lot of people going to say, well, I know some people that are, quote unquote, black, quote unquote, Latino or Mexican or Hispanic, and quote unquote natives that have a lot of money, right? Now, I want to ask, of all people, if the person was a king, they would have a bunch of riches and wealth, right? So let's look at what King David refers to himself as. This is King David. Let's see. Let's just see. So let's go to Psalms 40 and 17. Well, before we go there, let's go to Psalm 74 and 21. We're going to go to Psalm 74 and 21. Then we're going to look at what King David said. Psalm 74 and 21, even though David said all of these things as well. Psalm 74 and 21. Oh, let not the oppressed return to shame. This is David in prayer to the Most High. Let the poor and needy praise thy name. Who are the people that the poor and needy is referring to? Again, we saw from the world's point of view who the poor and needy is referring to. Who are poor and needy, rather. Now we're trying to see exactly who the Bible, and I mean everywhere in the Bible, who is the people that the words poor and needy are referring to. So now let's look at what King David said about himself. So now let's go to Psalms chapter 40 and verse 17. Psalms chapter 40 and verse 17. Listen to this, Israel. But I am poor and needy. Yet the Lord thinketh upon me. Thou art my help and my deliverer. Make no tarrying, oh my God. He's praying for deliverance, and he's asking that it's done expeditiously. He's asking the Most High to expeditiously deliver him. Again, this is King David. Let's go to Psalm 70 and 5. Let's just see if this is the one and only time that King David refers to even himself as poor and needy. Psalm 70 and 5, again, from David. But I am poor and needy, and make haste unto me, O God. He's praying to the Most High again. Thou art my help and my deliverer, O Lord, make no tarrying. Praying for the same thing. The exact same thing, but notice what King David refers to himself as. And the rest of the Bible refers to the same people that King David was a member of. So if you know a millionaire or a thousandaire or someone who lives comfortably that is of Israel descent, that does not mean that that person is not one of the people of the poor and needy. I don't care if they're a billionaire. They're one of this people, this collection of people that are the poor and needy. So let's go from there. We're going to go to Psalms 86 and 1. Psalms 86 and 1. Again, it's King David again speaking on himself. Let's see what he says. A prayer of David. Bow down thine ear, O Lord, hear me, for I am poor and needy. Now, the whole time that we're going through this, I want you to remember what the definitions of poor and needy are. And this is a king that's saying these things. Let me go from there to Psalms 109. Psalms 109. We're going to see. This is the last thing we're going to look at straight from David. Psalms 109 and verse 22. Verse 22. And it reads, this is him again, for I am poor and needy, and my heart is wounded within me. All from David. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I did a truth for thought about the righteous woman, right? From Proverbs 31. I did. In fact, it was about the righteous woman in Proverbs, the virtuous righteous woman, modest woman in Proverbs 31, and the Ephesians 5 man. I remember it. I'll have the link to that particular truth for thought in the description as well. But let's go to Proverbs 31 and 20. This is part of a modest, virtuous woman, queen of Israel. Proverbs, and we're going to chapter 31 and verse 20. Proverbs 31 and 20. And it reads, she stretcheth out her hand to the poor. Yea, she reacheth forth her hands to the needy. Israel, if you are not figuring out by now who the poor and needy are, even biblically, it is you. It is you. Let me keep going. Let's go to Ecclesiasticus 31 and 4. We're going to go to the Apocrypha, Ecclesiasticus 31 and 4. Ecclesiasticus 31 and 4. The poor laboreth in his poor estate, and when he leaveth off, he is still needy. That is our people. Now, my beloved brother, just Friday, he did a truth for thought. Well, not a truth for thought. I'm doing the truth for thought. He did a lesson, and he touched on how Israel, we became poor and needy. But this is the thing. He was in Deuteronomy 28. He read the blessings. If you go to Deuteronomy 28, in fact, let's just go there. Let's go to Deuteronomy 28, and we're just going to get verse 15, and you're going to find out how Israel became the poor and needy. Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 15. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. And one of them is you will look to your oppressor for each and everything that you will need. That is what happens in every ghetto. That is what happens in every barrio. That is what happened in every reservation. You will be in want of all things. Thus, you will be in poverty. And you can read in the curses, because there are certain curses that definitely show that poverty will be there. I'm not going to go into all of them because I got so much to go. But to further drive home who the poor and needy are, if you didn't get it from all the scriptures I went through, if you don't get it from reading Deuteronomy 28 and reading all the curses, let's go to Isaiah 41 and 17. Isaiah 41 and 17. It pretty much tells you. Isaiah 41 and 17. 41 and 17. And let's see what this says. Let's see what this says. When the poor and needy seek water, and there is none, and their tongue falleth for thirst, I, the Lord, will hear them. I, the God of Israel. I, the God of Israel, will not forsake them. Israel. I've said this before. The Most High has not forsaken you. But here you literally see who the poor and the needy are. Thus saith the Most High, God of Israel. Because he's talking about his people, his chosen people. But like my beloved brother Mike Maliss said just yesterday, we so stiff-necked, so hard-headed, so sottish. Instead of opting for plan A, and we would have not have been the poor and needy. Our people opted for plan B. Thus, we are the poor and needy. So now, let's go. I want to get a couple of accounts and some other verses just to solidify it. We're going to start out with the verses just to solidify how the wicked treat the poor and needy. Okay? Let's start off. We're going back to Psalms. We're going to start off in Psalms 37 and 14. Psalms chapter 37 and verse 14. We're going to see how the wicked treat the poor and needy. So Psalms 37 and 14 reads, the wicked have drawn out the sword and have bent their bow to cast down the poor and needy, and to slay such as be of upright conversation. That still holds true today here in God-forsaken Babylon. In all three of the areas, in all of the areas that the poor and needy reside in, that is still happening even today. But let me keep going. Let's go to Proverbs 30 and 14. Proverbs 30 and 14. And it reads, there is a generation whose teeth are as swords, and their jaw teeth as knives, to devour the poor from off the earth, and the needy from among men. Now, I'm pretty sure because like I said, my beloved brother Mike Maliss, just yesterday, he kind of talked about a certain oppressive biblical nationality. And I've done so many truth for thoughts. He's done so many lessons. King Gideon, done so many lessons about oppressors. But they've always oppressed the poor and needy. And who are the poor and needy? Let me keep going. We're going to go from there. We're going to go to Isaiah chapter 32 and verse 7. Isaiah 32 and 7. We're just going to keep looking at these precepts to see how the wicked treated the poor and needy, how the wicked treated Israel, how the wicked continues to treat Israel. The instruments also of the churl are evil. He divisive, wicked devices to destroy the poor with lying words, And my beloved brother King Mike Maliss pretty much went in on what the Bible simply phrases as wolves in sheep clothing. And how divisive they are with lying words, even when the needy speaketh right. So the poor and needy, again, Israel, are you? Israel, are you? Let's go from there. We're going to go to Ezekiel. Let's go to Ezekiel. And we're going to get chapter 16, verse 49. Chapter 16 and verse 49. Though, again, what's happening way back then, still happening today. Ezekiel chapter 16, verse 49. Behold, this was the iniquity of thy sister Sodom, pride, fullness of bread, and abundance of idleness was in her and in her daughters. Neither did she strengthen the hand of the poor and needy. So in the ancient place of Sodom, which you see a lot of what was going on in Sodom and Gomorrah. See that happening right here today in God-forsaken Babylon. But this is in regards to how the inhabitants of Sodom, how they, as wicked as they were, how they treated the poor and needy, how they treated Israel, the ones that did come through there. I wouldn't have, even if I'd have came through Sodom and Gomorrah, I'd have came and gone as swift as a gale force wind. But that's a subject for another day. We'll talk about that. I'm going to tell you, ATL, I'm going to be honest with you. I frequent ATL a lot. One of the things that I hate the most, and you can check with my beloved brothers, King Gideon, King Yada, and King Mike, they will verify this. Boy, I don't deal well with Sodom-like tendencies there in the ATL. I've also visited San Francisco. Oh boy. If Fruity Pebbles was a place and not a cereal, I promise you, those two places, and there are more. It's running rapid. Like I said, that's another whole nother description. I mean, a whole nother topic for a whole nother truth for thought. Let's go from Ezekiel 16 and 49. Let's go 2 chapters over to Ezekiel 18, and we're gonna get verse 12. Ezekiel 18 and verse 12. Listen to this. Have oppressed the poor and needy, have spoiled by violence, have not restored the pledge, and have lifted up his eyes to the idols, have committed abomination. These are things that happened to the poor and needy way back then, still happen to the poor and needy right now today. Let's go from there to Ezekiel chapter 22 and verse 29. Going over to Ezekiel 22 and going down to verse 29. Listen to this, Israel. The people of the land have used oppression and exercised robbery and have vexed the poor and needy. When I went over the people that are living in the ghetto, the barrio, and the reservation, this same thing is echoed throughout all three of those places. To the same people. Let me read that back home. Ezekiel 22 and 29. The pledge of the land have used oppression and exercised robbery and have vexed the poor and needy. Yea, they have oppressed the stranger wrongfully. Yet they have oppressed wrongfully. Now, I want to go get a couple of accounts. First account is going to be in Job. We're going to get Job 24, and we're just going to get 1 through 14. Just going to get 1 through 14. Not going to take too much time on it. Job 24 and 1 through 14. We're going to kind of sift through it because we're going to definitely see things that happen to the poor and needy, as we've already read who the poor and needy are. Job 21 verse 1. Job 24 verse 1. Why seeing times are not hidden from the Almighty? Do they that know him not see his days? Some remove the landmarks, they violently take away flocks and feed thereof. They drive away the ass of the fatherless. They take the widow's ox for a pledge. These are all things that happen to the poor and needy. They turn the needy out of the way. The poor of the earth hide themselves together. Again, we pretty much have said who the poor and needy are. Behold, as wild asses in the desert go they forth to their work, rising betimes for a prey. The wilderness yielded food for them and for their children. They reap everyone his corn in the field, and they gather the vintage of the wicked. They cause the naked to lodge without clothing, that they have no covering in the cold. They are wet in the showers of the mountains and embrace the rock for want of a shelter. Who are those people that embrace the rock for a shelter? A rock like Mount Seir. You can read way back in Genesis who inhabited Mount Seir. Let me keep going. They cause the naked to lodge without clothing, and that they have no covering in the cold. They are wet with the showers of the mountains and embrace the rock for want of a shelter. They pluck the fatherless from the breast and take a pledge of the poor. There's a verse that I could have used as a precept to it. Oh boy. Let me keep going. Because I'll go into starting to recognize who certain biblical nationalities are. Let me keep going. They cause him to go naked without clothing and take away the sheaf from the hungry, which make oil within their walls and tread their wine presses and suffer thirst. Men groan from out of the city, and the soul of the wounded crieth out. That's something that David referred to himself. He said, my heart crieth. Yet God layeth not to folly to them. They are of those that rebel against the light. They know not the ways thereof, nor abide in the paths thereof. The murder rising with the light killeth the poor and needy, and in the night is as a thief. I will tell you that is in regards to some heathens. I'll tell you that. That is in regards to some heathens. Now let's go. So I won't get onto change this whole truth of thought up. Let's go to Psalms 109. Let's go to Psalms 109. I'm going back to Psalms. Going all the way down to chapter 109. And we're going to get verses 1 through 16. Again, from David. To the chief musician, a psalm of David. Hold not thy peace, O God of my praise. You've seen David in a couple of scriptures that I've done today kind of cry out with words like hold not thy peace or bend thy bow, meaning he's praying to the Most High and asking, hear me. Hear me, Father. But let me keep going. Verse 2, for the mouth of the wicked and the mouth of the deceitful are opened against me. They have spoken against me with a lying tongue. I've said before, and I will say again, persecution is something that can be done by man, is done by man, and it includes slander. Slander is a type of persecution, but let's keep going. They compassed me about also with the words of hatred and fought against me without a cause. For my love, they are my adversaries, but I give myself unto prayer. And they have rewarded me evil for good and hatred for my love. Set thou a wicked man over him, and let Satan stand at his right hand. When he shall be judged, let him be condemned, and let his prayer become sin. Let his days be few, and let another take his office. Let his children be fatherless, and his wife a widow. Let his children be continually vagabonds and beg. Let them seek their bread also out of their desolate places. Let the extortioner catch all that he hath, and let the stranger spoil his labor. Let there be none to extend mercy unto him, neither let there be any to favor his fatherless children. Let his posterity be cut off, and in the generation following, let their names be blotted out. Let the iniquities of his fathers be remembered with the Lord, and let not the sin of his mother be blotted out. Let them be before the Lord continually, that he may cut off the memory of them from the earth, because that he remembered not to shew mercy, but persecuted the poor and needy man, that he might even slay the broken in heart. This was a prayer that David did in regards to how he, as one of the poor and needy, was being treated at that time. Now, and I'm sure that some of you probably have prayed something kind of similar to this because of things similar happening to you, Israel. Now let's look at how the Most High is in regards to the wicked treatment of the poor and needy. And to do this, we're going to go to two different spots in Isaiah. We're going to start at Isaiah 10, and we're just going to get verses 1 through 12. Isaiah chapter 10 and verses 1 through 12. Isaiah chapter 10, verse 1. Woe unto them that decree unrighteous decrees, and that write grievousness which they have prescribed. Verse 2, to turn aside the needy from judgment and to take away the right from the poor of my people. I'm going to go back and read that again because I'm sure it's some people that's probably still going to say, I'm not poor and needy. So let's see. If you are one of the Most High's chosen, peculiar people, the Bible is referring to you. But let's go back just to make sure and read it again. To turn aside the needy from judgment and to take away the right from the poor of my people, that widows may be their prey and that they may rob the fatherless. All of that David said way back in Psalms about the same. He's one of your people. If you are of Israelite descent, if you are an Israelite and you know who you are, you know David is one of your people. Verse 3, and what will ye do in the day of visitation and in the desolation which shall come from afar? To whom will ye flock for help? And where will ye leave your glory? Without me they shall bow down under the prisoners, and they shall fall under the slain. For all this, his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. Now, this was something that was stated to the Assyrians. Oh, Assyrian, who had the poor and needy in captivity, mainly the northern kingdom. In fact, pretty much the ones from the northern kingdom that did flee, there were a few that did get to flee, and they fled towards the southern kingdom. But then the Babylonian captivity happened, and guess what? There go all the southern and the few remaining from the northern kingdom. But let's keep going. O Syrian, the rod of mine anger and the staff in their hand is mine indignation. So this is how the Most High is in regards to people, or with the wicked treatment of the poor and needy. Let me keep going. I will send him against a hypocritical nation, and against the people of my wrath will I give him a charge, to take the spoil and to take the prey and to tread them down like the mire of the streets. Howbeit he meaneth not so, neither doth his heart think so, but it is in his heart to destroy and to cut off nations, not a few. For he saith, are not my princes altogether kings? This is in regards to you, Israel. Is not how no as that's a question. Well, I'll say that's a question I want you to keep in mind, Israel. Keep that in mind. For the Most High, the Most High said that we are a royal priesthood. We are royalty. But let me just keep going. When I see things like that, it just takes me back to other verses. So I got to keep my train of thought going. Let me keep going. Is not Calno as Carchemish? Is not Hamath as Arpad? Is not Samaria as Damascus? So what's going on is a comparison, a contrast and comparison of all these places in regard and Israel. As my hand have found the kingdoms of the idols, and whose graven images did excel them of Jerusalem and of Samaria. We going down to verse 12? Yeah. Shall I not, as I have done unto Samaria and her idols, and do to Jerusalem and her idols, wherefore it shall come to pass, and when the Lord hath performed his whole work upon Zion and on Jerusalem, I will punish the fruit of the stout heart of the king of Assyria and the glory of his high looks. This was a promise, and he did it. He made good on his word. To Assyria for their wicked treatment of the poor and needy. Now let's go to Isaiah 14. We're going to go over 4 chapters. And we're going to get all the way from 1 to 30. And we're going to run through it. I still got other stuff to go through. We're going to run through it. For the Lord will have mercy on Jacob. Even before you see the words poor and needy, I'm going to read that again. For the Lord, the Most High, will have mercy on Jacob, and will yet choose Israel and set them in their own land. And the strangers shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob. Now, here go where a lot of folks say, see, everybody can go. All we got to do is cleave to them. Listen. This gets no more plainer than for the Lord will have mercy on Jacob and will yet choose Israel. The word choose, of all the people, even the strangers that will cleave to them, the Most High chooses Israel. Okay. Now let's go to verse 2 for the everybody can go. When you all hear me say, everyone is not entitled to the kingdom. When I address who salvation is for, and it's written in very black and white, it's for a certain people, the same poor and needy. So let's go to verse 2 so that it can further be clarified. Although there will be strangers in the kingdom, they have a very specific purpose to be there. And I guess some would say it's salvation, but they won't be in rulership. They won't own a thing. In fact, they will be owned. Let's make sure of that. And the people shall take them and bring them to their place, and the house of Israel shall possess or own them in the land of the Lord for servants and handmaids, and they shall take them captives, whose captives they were, and they shall rule. Here you go with ruling, the rulership in the kingdom. They shall rule over the oppressors. So I guess because they didn't perish, some can say they were saved, but that's not being saved. Or let's say this, I'll be extremely blunt and extremely, I'm gonna be telling the truth. I mean, it says it right here in the Bible. You're being specifically saved for servitude. It's to all the heathen nations. All the heathen nations. Let me keep going. And I'm gonna have to, that's why I wanted to go through this fast, because this will turn into a whole nother truth thought too. And it shall come to pass in the day the Lord shall give thee rest from thy sorrow. This is talking about Israel. And from thy fear, and from the hard bondage wherein thou wast made to serve, that thou should take up this proverb against the king of Babylon. Remember, we looked at the Assyrian captivity. So I had to get an account that also included the Babylonian captivity. And say, how hath the oppressor ceased? The golden city ceased. The Lord hath broken the staff of the wicked and the scepter of the rulers. He who smote the people in wrath with a continual stroke, he that ruled the nations in anger is persecuted, and none hindereth. The whole earth is at rest and is quiet. They break forth into singing. Yea, the fair tree rejoiceth at thee, and the cedars of Lebanon, saying, since thou art laid down, no feller is come up against us. Hell from beneath is moved for thee to meet thee at thy coming. It stirreth up the dead for thee. This is all to Babylon. Even all the chief ones of the earth, it hath raised up from their thrones all the kings of the nations. All they shall speak and say unto thee, art thou also become weak as we? Art thou become like unto us? That you can see this going on right now in the world, because the daughter of Babylon, just like her mother, I did a truth for thought on that. Hey, it's people, it's other countries now that's saying, wait a minute, you might not be the strongest no more. We might be about as strong as you are. But let me keep going. That'll be another truth for thought. Thy pomp is brought down to the grave, and the noise of thy vials. The worm is spread under thee, and the worms cover thee. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. Yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit. They that have seen thee shall narrowly look upon thee and consider thee, saying, is this the man that made the earth to tremble, that did shake kingdoms, that made the world as a wilderness, and destroyed the cities thereof, that opened not the house of his prisoners? All the kings of the nation, even all of them, lie in glory, every one in his own house. But thou art cast out of thy grave like an abominable branch. And as the remnant of those that are slain, thrust through with a sword, that go down to the stones, to the pit, as a carcass trodden under feet. Thou shalt not be joined with them in burial, because thou hast destroyed thy land and slain thy people. The seed of evildoers shall never be renowned. A wicked people. All these other biblical nationalities that played any role in a certain treatment to the poor and needy. Boy, I hope y'all, because as we read earlier, even David said, for the iniquities of their father, because a lot of people gonna say, but I ain't like that. Well, was your father? And was his father? And what about his father? And his father? And his father? Because for the iniquities of the father. But let me keep going. Let me keep going, because we read that a little earlier back in Psalm. Prepare slaughter for his children. This is the same thing. Look, this is the same thing that David said in his prayer. He didn't say the prepare slaughter part, but he said for the iniquities of their fathers. But let me start this over. Prepare slaughter for his children, for the iniquity of their fathers, that do not rise nor possess the land, nor fill the face of the world with cities. For I will rise up against them, saith the Lord of hosts, and cut off from Babylon the name. There's something else that David asked, that the Most High cut their name off. But let's keep going. And remnant and son and nephew, saith the Lord. I will also make it possession for the beaten in pools of water, and I will sweep it with the besom of destruction, saith the Lord of hosts. The Lord of hosts hath sworn, saying, surely I have thought so, shall it come to pass, and as I have purposed, so shall it stand, that I will break the Assyrian in my land, and upon my mountains tread him underfoot. Then shall his yoke depart from off them, and his burden depart from off their shoulders. Talking about the poor and needy. This is the purpose that is purposed upon the whole earth, and this is the hand that is stretched out upon all the nations. All the nations. Every other biblical nation, all the heathens. For the Lord of hosts have purposed, and who shall disannul it? And his hand is stretched out, and who shall turn it back? In the year that King Ahaz died, was this burden. Rejoice not thou, whole Palestine, because the rod of him that smote thee is broken. For out of the serpent's root shall come forth a cockatrice, and his fruit shall be a fiery flying serpent. And the firstborn of the poor shall feed, and the needy shall lie down in safety. And I will kill thy root with famine, and he shall slay thy remnant. That's all from the Most High. All from the Most High. Now, I want to go from that to things the poor and needy have asked of the Most High. This is things that the poor and needy in prayer have asked of the Most High. So let's go all the way back to Psalms. All the way back to Psalms, we're going to get chapter 35, verse 10. Chapter 35, verse 10. And it reads, this is David. All my bones shall say, Lord, who is like unto thee, which delivereth the poor from him that is too strong for him, yea, the poor and the needy from him that spoileth him. These are things that are included in prayer. These are things that our ancestors prayed for to the Most High. The ancestors of Israel. Not everybody else, because we've seen in a couple of places what the Most High got for every fucking body else. Now let's go to Psalm 74 and 21. So we're going to go to Psalms chapter 74, staying in Psalms chapter 74, and we get in verse 21. Oh, let not the oppressed return ashamed. Let the poor and needy praise thy name. These are things that are asked of the Most High. And again, we know who the poor and needy are. Trust me, if you don't, I'm going to sum this up at the end with one verse. I'm going to go to Revelation. I'm going to get that verse. We're going to see. Let's go to Psalms 82. We're going to go to Psalms 82. And we're going to get verses 3 and 4. Psalms 82. And we're going to get verses 3 and 4. Defend the poor and fatherless. And a lot of this you've seen in other scripture about the fatherless and all. Let me keep going. Defend the poor and fatherless. Do justice to the afflicted and needy. Deliver the poor and needy. Rid them out of the hand of the wicked. Here, Israel, you can see where the poor and needy, where Israel are praying for deliverance, for salvation. Now we also looked at things to come to the heathen, including, if you want to say you were saved from death, being saved from death, but definitely saved for servitude, not for rulership. It literally said that these poor and needy people, this nation of the poor and needy people, will rule over their once oppressors. All right. Now, I want to look at, and I worded this just this way, because at this particular point, I'm pretty sure that everyone, if you just have any sense of reading comprehension, understand who the poor and needy are by now. Not to mention just the all-out raw stats that I presented. Not to mention the definitions of the word poor and needy. Just per the scripture alone. But this is how I worded this particular thing that I want to look at. How Israel, and in parentheses, the poor and needy, should treat the poor and needy, or in parentheses, Israel, because they are about as interchangeable as Jacob is with Israel in the Bible. Let's go to Proverbs 31. Again, I talked about the virtuous woman, and I was telling you all that these things were being taught to a young man by a virtuous woman. But I want to see something, and I said when I went through that, there are some nuggets in here for Israel. And there's a very wise thing that she advised her son. Let's go to Proverbs 31 and Proverbs 31 and 9. Open thy mouth. Now, this is what she told her son. Open thy mouth, judge righteously, and plead the cause of the poor and needy. Basically, plead the cause of your people. Very, very wise words. That is how we are to be for one another, as long as they're righteous. Because I promise you, as a righteous man, I'm not going to plead the cause of a foolish man, of a wicked man, of an unjust man. I'm not going to plead the cause of that. But the cause of another righteous man, oh, I'll plead that. I will definitely do that. So now, we coming towards the end of it. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 more scriptures. And then we're going to wrap this up. Now we're going to look at how the Most High is in regards to the poor and needy. You're going to see a few promises that are in this. But this is how the Most High is in regards to the poor and needy. So let's go to Psalms chapter 9 and verse 18. Psalms chapter 9 and verse 18. This is how the Most High is in regards to the poor and needy, in regards to Israel, in regards to his people. Psalms 9 and 18. For the needy shall not always be forgotten. The expectations of the poor shall not perish forever. Verse 19. Arise, O Lord, let no man prevail. Let the heathen be judged in thy sight. Verse 20. Put them in fear, O Lord, that the nations may know themselves to be but men. So the Most High never forgets the poor and needy. He never forgets about his people. Let's keep going. Let's go over to Psalms 12 and 5. We're going to go over to Psalms 12 and 5. For the oppression of the poor, for the sighing of the needy, now will I arise, saith the Lord. I will set him in safety from him that puffeth at him. That's from the oppressors, from all the, that saith the Lord. That saith the Most High. Let's go to Psalm 72 and 4. We're going to go to Psalm chapter 72 and verse 4. We're going to see how these line up. He shall judge the poor of the people. He shall save the children of the needy and shall break in pieces the oppressor. Lining right on up. Let's keep going. Let's go to Psalms. We're going to drop down to verse 12 and 13. For he shall deliver the needy when he crieth, the poor also, and him that hath no helper. He shall spare the poor and needy, and shall save the souls of the needy. Same thing. Let's go to Psalms 113 and 7. Psalms 113 and 7. He raiseth up the poor out of the dust and lifteth the needy out of the dunghill. This is how the Most High is in regards to the poor and needy. Let's go to Isaiah 25 and 4. Let's go to Isaiah chapter 25, verse 4. And it reads, For thou hast been a strength to the poor, a strength to the needy in his distress, a refuge from the storm, a shadow for the heat. When the blast of the terrible ones is as a storm against the wall. This is how the Most High is in regards to the poor and needy. And I'm going to get two more verses. Isaiah 41 and 7. We're going to stay in Isaiah. We're going to get chapter 41 and verse 17. And it reads, when the poor and needy seek water. We've read this one earlier. I just love hearing this. Because if this don't give you hope, you nation undesired. I don't understand. Nation undesired. You poor and needy people. I'm one of those people too. Just to hear the Most High address this. And we're going to read again before I get the last scripture I'm going to come with is going to come out of Revelations. When the poor and needy seek water, and there is none, and their tongue faileth for thirst, I, the Lord, will hear them. The Most High will hear these righteous, poor, and needy people. I, the God of Israel, will not forsake them. So although it is true that everywhere in the Bible you see poor and needy, it's in regards to you, Israel. And although in reality, you more than likely are of the poor and needy. I don't care if you feel like you're living comfortable. I don't care if you say, but I get all my bills paid on time. That does not matter. You are of a certain people. This certain people is the poor and needy. Now, you might not be as poor as your brethren or as needy as your brethren. But hey, we read back in Proverbs 31 and 9, you're supposed to plead the case for your brethren. You can read about how we should be with one another as we are all poor and needy, Israel. To prove it, we will go and look at where Yahweh Shah differentiates you. Because although you're poor and needy now, in the place that you are, let's see what's to be for the righteous, poor and needy. Out of the mouth of Yahweh Shah, as he compares you to some people that say they're you. So let's go to Revelation chapter 2, verse 9. Revelation chapter 2, verse 9. Because if that last scripture, Isaiah 41 and 17, doesn't make you feel real good about being poor and needy, it's the Most High. He's going to provide for you, you poor and needy people. Let's listen to this. Let's listen to this. All in red, Yahweh Shah said this: I know thy works and tribulations and poverty. So he knows you're the poor and needy. But what you might not know although you're labeled, although you are stricken, you're called things that you're not supposed to be, you're oppressed, you're constantly persecuted, constantly preyed upon. A lot of this stuff we read all throughout this Truth for Thought. But understand, you righteous, poor, and needy, thou art actually rich. And I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. Understand, he that endureth to the end, I've said this so many times. You righteous, poor, and needy, you righteous, chosen, peculiar people. You righteous kings, queens, princes, princesses of Israel. It might appear, and I use that very specific word for a reason, it might appear that you are in poverty, that you are poor, but thou art rich. With that, I want to say, it does not matter where you read in the Bible about the poor and needy. You will come to find it's about the same people. In the present day, these same people, and again, I just looked at here in Babylon, and I couldn't find 2022 and 2023, but as of 2021, those people make up the 12 tribes of Israel. It's not ironic or coincidental, though, because we had a choice. Our forefathers had a choice. Can hearken unto the Most High and do all the laws, statutes, and commandments that he command thee on this day, or you cannot. If you do, then all these blessings, as my beloved brother King Mike Maliss said just yesterday, in a suit, and I know he was hot. All these blessings will overtake thee. Those are the exact words. How can you be overtaken by blessings? Wow. Coulda, woulda, shoulda. But again, that was option A. Some kind of way. Our forefathers chose option B, where all the curses will overtake. And in those curses, you see how far Israel fell. In those curses, you see how they later are even referring to themselves as the poor and needy. In those curses, you see what goes on in the ghetto, in the barrios, and on the reservations. But he of you poor and needy that endureth to the end, righteous, he shall be saved. You can read that all from Matthew on up. So, Israel, I want to say again, if you can be charitable and donate to our beloved Queen, Queen Raya, please do so. The link to the GoFundMe is in the description. Even if you can't, do me a huge personal favor. Go to the link anyway and read her story. Read her story. And once you read her story, you'll understand why I say this. Whether you donate or not, keep our beloved Queen in prayer. Because as Proverbs 31:9 said, that wise little, one of those wise tokens that was given to a son by a very wise mother, I will contend for the wise and need. I mean, for the poor and needy. And she is a righteous Israelite. All right. So beyond that, keep also righteous people of the nation in prayer. And I'm gonna end it on this right here. I asked at the beginning, I'm gonna ask you again. Israel, are you ready? Royal family, are you ready? And ATL, are you ready? The Royal Gathering Part 2. It's coming. It's in the works. And with that, let me stop sharing my screen. It's your brother Marcus G. Be it the Most High will. Till next time, I love you and I bid you shalom.